you'd be getting chocolate too. Miss all the good things.
Where are you at, Jeff? Where are you located at?
I'm on Bainbridge Island,
Oh, cool. Okay.
and there actually is another one of our board members has joined us, Larry Granite.
Hey,
Hi, Larry. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right. And there's James. Hi, James.
hey, James.
Hey guys, hello.
Welcome. Welcome. All right.
Looks
We've
like-
got a few people online, got a few people in person. This is great.
I thought James would be watching the games right now.
We were downstairs watching the swimming because one of our local guys here in Fremont, his sister just won the 200, is it?
They're doing
400?
qualifying, right?
Yeah, they're doing the qualifying. She's apt to do like 6 of them.
In the Olympics.
And then she'll be in the Olympics being representing. She's pretty good.
That's impressive.
Yeah, yeah. It's just fine until some big, tall, broad-shouldered guy decides he's a woman.
Oh, Lord.
I'm not gonna get into that subject.
That's a tricky one, isn't it? Especially if we're being recorded. Lord have mercy. All right. Well, it is 6:03, so I suppose we should go ahead and get started. There's a couple things on the agenda that we want to get to before Jeff's presentation. So let's go ahead and do that. I don't have a flag here with us to do the pledge, though. So let me. There is. We can salute that way. Okay.
Just all face that way and salute.
All right. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No flag. I almost forgot to take off my hat.
Mhm.
All right. A couple other folks coming. Let's get them in the room. Hello, welcome. Welcome, Jeff. Welcome, Sala. Welcome. All right. So,
Hello, everybody.
hey, Jeff.
Hello. That's the Jeff
Welcome.
I was expecting.
Hi.
You're gonna
I
be
saw it.
sorry you're not here because everybody here gets chocolate.
Yeah, well, tell John to hold that beer up closer to the camera.
You don't get any of this.
Darn. I'm gonna complain to Zoom. They haven't found a way to transfer liquids over the
I
air.
have coconut shrimps downstairs.
Oh, we're living large over here. Okay, well, that's a little bit of a transition into our first item, which is getting back to meeting in person at Hales. Randy's been working a little bit with a couple folks over at Hales, and as of right now, I understand that we're trying to get a meeting scheduled with Susie and
Mike,
not Mike, but Mike has a
manager.
an assistant of some sort.
Is it Julia?
It's not Julie. It's yeah. Randy said it was Julia at first, but then he said that there's another person. Let's see. Mike. Yes, Heather.
Yeah, I just found that email. I just got that today.
So perhaps Susie, if it's
I
okay.
could just call
Do you want to just contact Heather and schedule a meeting and figure that out? And if there's anything that we need to discuss further, we can do so. But I think everyone is interested in going back to Hales. It's just a matter of what are the regulations going to be and what do we need to do to get in there?
Right.
Okay.
Will do.
Awesome. All right. Last week we made 300 sandwiches,
Yep.
which was
It
a
was
big.
like 310.
310, which is a big deal for us. We usually make, or we have been over the last few months, making closer to 50 to 150 sandwich.
Yeah.
So that was a big meeting for us. That was fun.
And the big news of tonight, since I sat down with the Chamber of Commerce to have a picture taken, and one of the board members of the Chamber is the manager of PCC, we now have pickles and mustard coming for freebie from PCC.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank you, PCC. Big thanks to
You're
PCC.
awfully serious, Jim. What's going on?
He's trying to figure out who we are here.
He doesn't have a beer.
He doesn't have a beard.
PCC used to donate our bread and they
Right.
were really, really supportive.
But I didn't want to cut Fran's out of the deal since we've been getting the bread from Fran's just fine. So I just made her another offer.
Yeah, and we
That's
should.
Very nice, yeah.
And she says all of their bread now goes up to the food bank.
That's great.
So, but she would have held out enough for us to make sandwiches, you know, one week of the month, but
At PCC.
yeah, PCC, she's
Okay.
managing PCC.
So do you remember why we can't use that bread?
Well, I remember a stupid reason, but anyway,
Okay.
I
Moving
did-
on.
I know the mustard and pickles will be fine.
They will
And we
really
should-
appreciate it.
You were making a good point. We should do a better job, maybe on the website or somewhere of really promoting PCC and
Well, and
France.
Roxy's is back open again, so it does Peter a lot of good for us to mention that he gives us the meat and cheese, and that's always been a biggie.
And Talkies, Vicky said that she would, when they go to cash and carry, they would provide the meat.
Oh,
The only thing, and maybe they could get off the hook this way, the only thing we really need is now bags. Yeah, sandwich bags.
Sandwich bags?
Yeah, like, and we don't even use that many. I mean, if we keep making 300, that's a decent amount, but yeah, just the sandwich bag ones, not like the big quart ones.
Okay, so she was like.
Have you contacted Teos or Theos, however you want to say it? They've been very generous in the past.
Theo's,
The chocolate?
Yep,
Oh, cool.
yeah, but we don't
We-
give chocolate.
We could start including chocolates in the sandwich bag, maybe? No?
I asked Theo for an
No.
awful lot of chocolate, for an awful
Okay.
lot of things.
It's definitely a good idea, Saul. Thank you.
They are good folks.
they are, yeah.
Cool. So let's see.
Should we
Last,
introduce everybody at the meeting?
oh, sure. Since there are a few folks here that don't normally come to our meeting. Let's see. Should we start with our guest speaker? Jeff, would you like to give a little introduction?
Sure, I'll make it short. Jeff Pritchard, a member of Seattle 4, longtime member. Been involved with Malaria Partners International since 2016, of which you'll soon hear about. So I'll leave it at that.
All right. Thank you so much for being here, Jeff.
And I remember when we had an event together at the Fremont Studios for malaria.
There we go. What year was that?
2016,
16?
17.
Very
Might
cool.
have been 17.
Very cool. All right. And then we also have Sala Sweet here joining us tonight. Hi, Sala.
Hi, I'm from University District Rotary Club, and I'm also on the board of Malaria Partners International.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming tonight. And then the last gentleman that we have tonight is Larry visiting. Yes, pardon me, visiting. Is Larry. Hi, Larry.
Good evening, good evening. I'm also a member of Seattle 4 for quite a while. Been involved in the malaria issue since 2011. Have taken a half a dozen trips to Africa, to Uganda and Zambia to see our projects that we're working on, and hope to go soon, but I think the pandemic is more in control of that than I.
Yes,
For now, at least.
Yes.
to reintroduce ourselves.
Sure. Let's just give an introduction of all of our Fremont Rotarians since we have so many guests tonight.
Yeah.
Susie
Somebody
Burke.
who's online,
Okay.
finish all the people that are online.
Let's go online then. James, would you like to go first? Introduce yourself.
Yes, I will. I just was muted there. So James Donaldson, pending member for Fremont Rotary Club. I've been a Rotarian off and on throughout the many years, and visited almost all of our local clubs in the region over the years. And former small business owner. I've been very involved with the Chamber of Commerce over the years as well, executive committee and board of director, all those kind of good things. And currently I'm just staying busy, running a campaign for the office of mayor of Seattle. So that's keeping me busy now, but things are going well.
Very humble introduction from a very accomplished man.
Thanks.
All right, Jeff, would you like to go next?
Hey, everybody. Yeah, Jeff Hickey, the other Jeff in the meeting tonight, and Fremont Rotarian for 4 years, immediate past president, and wish I could be with you there tonight, but it's hard to get out of West Seattle in the evening anymore. So, in fact, last week I took the bus just because I did not want to deal with it. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to the resumption of meetings at Hales. Loves it there, and I'm a former Boeing tech writer and looking hard for tech writing jobs right now. So if anybody knows of any tech documentation openings, please let me know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Jeff. All right, so now we have the in-person introductions from the folks here. Should we start with Susie?
Susie Burke, Fremont, actually the instigator, along with Mike Hale, for starting the Fremont Club back in 2000.
I'm Beth Tesh, past president, currently on the Bolt for Blood Committee, co-chairing with Stan Creasy of Seattle 4.
I'm Rudy Pantoya, and I'm the Dino Trail Cleanup Project Coordinator for the cleanup along our waterway and canal.
That's a great title.
I'm John Booker, I'm twice former president and professor emeritus at the University of Washington in Earth and Space Sciences. And I hold in my hand here $200 that belong to the malaria people that I found in a drawer that they were supposed to have been turned over to you in 2017.
And along with this $50 check.
Yes.
So I'll put a $50 check with that 200. So you got $250 coming to malaria even before we get started.
Without even having to ask. Okay. Like
Well, they
that.
already asked.
Oh, well.
The work
Better
is
late
done.
than-
I can go home.
Introduce yourself.
My name is Kurt. I'm the current president for Fremont Rotary for a couple more weeks here, and I'm happy to be with everybody. All right, so it is almost 6:15 now. I'd say let's get along into the presentation if that suits Jeff.
That suits Jeff fine. If I'm able to do the screen sharing.
Yeah, let me set you up with host privileges if I can remember.
I think I've got it, Kurt.
Okay. Perfect.
And hopefully those of you at the end of the table can see this. On my screen, it looks like you're about 1,000 feet away. So we'll give it a shot. But first off, I really appreciate the opportunity of meeting with you. I'm pleased that Larry and Sala are along. Sala oversees Ghana for us. She kind of oversees the whole country. And Larry is very modest. He was the previous board chair, and he handles incredibly complex logistics in getting large groups of people to Africa back and forth safely. So hats off to both of them. But what I wanted to cover tonight in regard to some of the work that we're doing in malaria is touch upon malaria itself. Some of you are probably already familiar with some aspects of malaria. Touch upon why Rotary is so uniquely positioned to have a major impact in this fight against malaria. talk about some of the projects that we're doing in conjunction with other Rotary clubs in the US and in Africa. And then at the end, leave a little time for what's called programs of scale. This was in the May issue of the Rotary magazine. This is a large grant program that Rotary has just rolled out, and we were fortunate enough to be the recipients of the inaugural grant, but I'll touch upon that. And I'll leave plenty of time for questions and plenty of time so you can get out early for recess. This is a picture of a fossilized mosquito in amber. And just like in the movie Jurassic Park, researchers have drilled in through amber into these fossilized mosquitoes to see what is in that prehistoric blood. And what they've discovered, among other things, is the malaria parasite. And they've actually traced malaria back over 1 million years on the planet. And that's why most researchers feel that malaria has probably been the greatest single killer of humankind throughout time. The way malaria spreads, it's very cyclical. It's somewhat self-sustaining in a way. But a mosquito, and it's a specific species called the Anopheles mosquito, and it's only the female of the species. It will bite someone who has the malaria parasite in their bloodstream, and then it's in the mosquito. And so about a week later, when it's time for the mosquito to have its next blood meal, the parasite has worked its way into the mosquito's saliva. And so when it bites the next person who doesn't have the parasite then gets into the person's bloodstream. And from there, what it does is it goes to our livers, and it stays there for about 10 to 14 days, multiplying and multiplying, and then it breaks into the bloodstream. And it attacks our red blood cells, and it literally attaches to the red blood cell and kind of sucks the inside out and then moves on to the next red blood cell. It is indeed a parasite. And because red blood cells carry oxygen to our organs and extremities, even when malaria isn't fatal, it's absolutely exhausting. And so a person is usually laid out in bed for 2 to 3 weeks, can't go to work, can't go to school. So it's a very debilitating disease, even when it's not fatal. The impact of malaria today is still pretty dramatic. This data is the most recent from the World Health Organization. And each year there's over 200 million cases. And obviously those are not always fatal. And yet every year over 400,000 people die from malaria. And that's year after year after year. And actually that's improvement. 10 years ago, that number was 1 million people who were dying every year. And probably the big tragedy is that 94% of these deaths are in sub-Saharan Africa, but the vast majority are children under the age of 5 years old and pregnant women. So it's those with either developing or compromised immune systems. This picture you see is part of a small village graveyard in an area in Uganda where we work. And as you can imagine, those small gravestones are of babies and very small children who have died of malaria. One of the kind of the side effects of malaria, and this is kind of sadly ironic because it's the same thing we were fearful a year ago, and which India is now experiencing with COVID. And that is malaria overwhelms very resource-challenged health facilities in sub-Saharan Africa. This is a picture of a rural health clinic in Uganda. Again, very resource-challenged. A lot of these places don't even have electricity. And during the rainy season, 70% of their caseload are people who either have malaria or think they have malaria. And again, it really overwhelms these challenged health systems, and they're unable to focus on other areas of healthcare as much as they would like to. So Malaria Partners International, which I'm on the board, and Larry and Sala on the board, this is actually an organization. We're a separate charitable organization, but we're comprised of all Rotarians. So officers, board members, all Rotarians. And I think now we incorporate, I think we have board members from about 7 or 8 different districts within the US. But we were actually formed back in 2009. The then president of Seattle Rotary met with Bill Gates Sr., who I'm sure you read passed away about 3 months ago, unfortunately. But she met with Bill Sr. to get his opinion on what the next big Rotary project should be after polio is eradicated. And he said malaria. And so our mission, our goal is pretty straightforward. We're hoping that Rotary will take on malaria as either a priority or the priority in a post-polio world. And we do that through several ways. Advocacy, which is meeting with groups like yourself tonight. But the other, and probably most of our efforts, is on kind of being a bridge builder or a facilitator for global grants around malaria elimination. So we work with clubs in the US and clubs in Africa for the most part to develop global grants for malaria elimination. And we've done work in, most recently, a lot in Zambia. Saul has been doing work in Ghana. We've done work in Tanzania, a fair amount in Uganda. We've begun to do work in West Africa, Zambia and Senegal. As you can imagine, sometimes very challenging political and environments. But those are the areas we work. And you know, one of the things that has really surprised us in the last couple of years is the organizations, the global health leaders that have come to us because they want to get Rotary involved in this malaria battle more. And you can see these are the leaders in global health: the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, UNICEF, the UN Foundation, PATH MASEPA, that's in downtown Seattle. And I think the reason they approach us, and this is something that we've all been Rotarians a while, and it's easy to kind of forget, everything that Rotary brings to the table in relation to possibly getting very involved in malaria. I think it's that kind of that thing, you don't see the forest for the trees. But I like to highlight 4 reasons why Rotary is so uniquely positioned to have a major impact with malaria. And the first and most obvious is polio. Over the last 30 years, we have developed an incredible infrastructure around polio eradication. And it's ideally suited for malaria elimination. And I think these big organizations see that infrastructure and realize what a tragedy it would be if it just kind of withered and went away. And already, you know, about 9 months ago, Africa was declared polio free. And so, you know, that whole continent is looking for kind of the next challenge. So that infrastructure is incredibly valuable towards another disease battle. The second element is that Rotary's got real financial muscle. You know, since 1985, we have contributed $2 billion to polio eradication. And that doesn't include all the funds that we've invested in our own respective communities. It doesn't include all the other international projects. You know, Rotarians are generous and organizations see that. The third element, which really makes Rotary potentially effective with malaria, is the fact that we're politically neutral. You know, when we go to a country to help, and you all know this, we're there for strictly humanitarian purposes. We don't have any hidden political agenda. We don't have any hidden religious agenda. We are only there to help. And this is why countries want to work with Rotary and Rotarians and are anxious to partner with us. The picture on the left you see is myself in a meeting with Vice President Winna of Zambia. The picture on the right is another one of our board members, Jim Moore, meeting with the President of the Gambia. So these countries want to work with Rotary because they know there's no strings attached. I think the fourth thing, you know, we've all heard the expression, you need boots on the ground for a project or a program to be successful. And that's very true. But what Rotary brings to the table is we have community leaders on the ground. And they may be business leaders, they may be government leaders, educational leaders, religious leaders, even military leaders. But what that means is when we come into a community to do a project, the leaders are already on board. And so getting the whole community engaged and kind of all working in the same direction is much, much easier when the local leaders are engaged and involved. So it's a huge advantage for Rotary. I want to pivot now to explain some of the work that we're currently doing in conjunction with, as I mentioned, Rotary clubs in the US and Rotary clubs in Africa. And we've recently been doing a lot of work in Zambia. And for those who aren't familiar, you can see Zambia is in kind of the southern part of Africa. From a square mile standpoint, Zambia is the size of Texas. It's really easy to forget how big Africa is. We've been doing a lot of work. I'm trying to move my cursor. In this region here, it's called the Copperbelt province of Zambia. And about 4 years ago, we met with government officials, local Rotarians, and really decided that we were going to make a concentrated effort to eliminate malaria in the Copperbelt province. It has about 2.5 million residents. As the name implies, their primary industry is copper mining. In fact, that's where the country gets most of its hard currency. And over the last couple of years, probably 3 key global grants that we've done. And this illustrates the districts within the Copperbelt province that we've done these projects. Most recently, and one that just now is being implemented, is the training and equipping of over 1,000 community health workers in several of the districts. And I want to explain these 3 grants total about $1.5 million and are training 1,600 community health workers. But I want to explain this model, because this community health worker model is incredibly important in the developing world, not just for malaria, but for many delivering many different healthcare areas. We know how to knock malaria down in a community. You bring in insecticide treated nets, you educate the people on how to use them and how to take care of them. And you combine that with what's called indoor residual spraying. That's spraying a mild insecticide on the walls and the ceiling of the huts. The problem is it's not financially sustainable. These countries can't afford to do that. That indoor residual spraying is particularly expensive. The model that is sustainable is called this community health worker model. And community health workers are volunteers who are selected by their communities to treat malaria at the household level. And so a community health worker may be assigned 100 households representing maybe 500 people. And every few weeks, they'll go to that household and say, does anyone have malaria symptoms? If they do, they can test them right then and there. And in 10 minutes, they'll know if that person has malaria or not. If they do have malaria, they have the medicines with them to treat it right then and there at the household level. And so what our programs do is they train these community health workers and equip them so they can work for 2 to 3 years. One of the things of treating that malaria at the household level, there's 3 advantages to that, which are pretty significant. The first is the sooner you can treat malaria, the less time it has to develop in what's called severe malaria, which is fatal. The second element is that, remember that picture of the clinic I showed you a few slides ago? If you can treat malaria at the household level, you free up the clinics. They're not overwhelmed and they can begin focusing on other issues beyond just malaria. And the third element, again, remember how malaria is spread. It's by those mosquitoes. The sooner you can cure the malaria so it doesn't run its 2 to 3 week course, that gives the mosquitoes much less time to spread it to other members in the family or to other members in the community. Now our training, this picture on the left is obviously it's pre-COVID because they're sitting close together with no masks. But typically the training is a 3-week program in the classroom. And then that's followed by a week out in the field where they shadow an experienced community health worker before they go back to their own community and begin working in their own households. And I want about, gosh, it was about 1.5 years ago, and this is a trip that Larry coordinated, thanks to him. But we visited Zambia to check on the status of, we had another cohort of community health workers graduating. And so we visited and went out in the field with them to kind of see the work they were doing. And this is very typical of a household that they would visit. Very remote, very rural, and very impoverished. You know, there's no mobile clinic or anything. The community health workers get around by bicycle because a lot of these households that they're responsible for are so remote, there's not even really roads to get to them. And they'll check the households if someone has any symptoms or if another member of the household has symptoms. They'll test them, prick the finger, use a rapid diagnostic test to see if that person has malaria or not. This particular young girl we were testing because her sister had tested positive several days before, and they were coming back when the rest of the family was at home to test the whole family. One of the things, and I'll show you the test kit in a moment, but one of the things you'll notice on this impromptu office they've set up is a cell phone. That's something that we provide the community health workers. Now that's a real perk, but there's 2 very functional reasons for that. The first is that some of these areas are so remote that to get to them initially or to get to them again and to get to the households surrounding them to test neighbors and whatnot, you rely on GPS coordinates. And so you can do that with a smartphone. The second reason is that more and more these days, data is becoming more and more important, not just to defeat malaria, but to defeat other diseases. And so what the community health workers will do is they'll collect their data in a logbook. At the end of the week, they can upload that using the smartphone, upload that into a national database. And then the data can be assessed for where there's outbreaks of malaria, where is it moving towards? Who else in the community has it? What are the most efficient best practices? The data is becoming extremely important for the malaria. This is a picture of the little rapid diagnostic test they use. This is actually the one they used for me. When we were there, we were kind of guinea pigs for the new community health workers. I guess that's a little like getting your hair cut at barber college, but it all worked out. And you know, they put a drop of blood on there, and in 10 minutes they can tell you if that person has malaria or not. As I mentioned, the data is initially collected by the community health workers in a logbook. And you'll see the shirts that they have the Rotary emblem. Their hats have that, their bikes, their backpacks. That's kind of one of the nice features that even in the most remote areas of these countries that we're working in, the people know that it's Rotary that is relieving them from the burden of malaria. And this is how they operate. They put a tarp on the ground. They carry their supplies in a backpack as they're riding on the bicycles. So it's a very informal, but a very effective process. And again, this is when we were distributing bicycles to this graduating cohort of community health workers. This is another perk of the job or of the volunteer position, because a lot of these people, a lot of them don't even have bicycles, let alone cars. So again, this is one of the perks of being a community health worker. Aside from it's kind of a status thing. They're sort of perceived as a professional health provider in their communities and in their neighborhoods. And so there's status attached to it as well. Well, I want to quickly pivot and talk a little bit about this large program that Rotary has initiated called Programs of Scale. They announced this, that they were starting this program about 2 years ago. And this is a once a year, $2 million competitive grant that Rotary is making, and the purpose is so that Rotarians can have a bigger impact. And Rotary is beginning to explore potential initiatives once polio is finally eradicated. And we were fortunate enough in the proposal that we put together. It was a proposal in Zambia in the Central and Muchinga provinces. Here's the Copper Belt. Muchinga is extremely remote, and Central has areas that are very remote. And so we were fortunate to partner with not just Rotary for this project that did award us the grant, but the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and World Vision said to us, if Rotary awards this grant to you, we will each match that. So we did, we were successful. And so this is turning into a $6 million project. And it'll be training 2,500 community health workers and equipping them for a little over between 3 and 4 years in the Muchinga and Central provinces. And this will relieve the burden of malaria for 1.3 million residents. And this was the feature of the cover of Rotary magazine back in May of this year. But when you do the math, you figure, well, gee, this is a $6 million project. You've got 1.3 million residents for 3 years. This pencils out to a little under $2 per resident per year, not per day or per week, per year. It's incredibly cost effective. And this is why it's such a promising model for all sorts of healthcare delivery in the developing world. But it's why it's so sustainable. So we're launching this. We've just begun the training. And again, we are partnering. This is actually the lead club is the Federal Way Rotary Club, who's the person coordinating that is again on the board of Malaria Partners International. But this promises to be a really exciting program and having significant impact. So a lot of ways that clubs, even clubs based in Fremont, can get involved in this. You know, we have a monthly newsletter, we have webinars. In fact, we've got one at the end of the month talking about some of the vaccination possibilities and potential on the horizon for malaria. One of the easiest ways is, as I said, we are almost constantly putting together global grants with clubs in the US. The last one, that $1 million one, had 25 US clubs participating. We're putting one together that would be another $1 million global grant for Uganda. That also is a very high endemic country, and we're looking to train about 1,200 community health workers in that region. So a lot of ways that clubs can get involved. So if you do want to, you can take a picture of this QR code, go to our website. Before I turn it over for questions, I'm told there's only 2 or 3 things that anybody ever remembers from a presentation. So I guess the 3 things that I think you might want to consider remembering. First off, malaria is still killing 400,000 people every single year, and most of those are young children. The second thing is, because of a variety of circumstances, Rotary is really uniquely positioned to have a major impact in this fight. And lastly, consider malaria as a Rotary-wide initiative in a post-polio environment. And with that, I appreciate your attention and happy to answer any questions if there's time for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. That was a wonderful presentation. Let's go ahead, like you said, and open it up for questions. If anyone, does anyone have questions, comments in here? I'll start it off and let people kind of get those questions going in their minds, just by asking, in your opinion, would it make sense to divert efforts from polio at this point to malaria, to the efforts for malaria? Or do you think that fully eradicating polio is a necessary step before transitioning some of those funds to malaria in a hypothetical world?
Well, I think it's extremely important for Rotary to complete the mission and eliminate or eradicate polio. And actually for example, the money that the Gates Foundation has donating to us or supporting this project is separate and apart from polio money. They also want polio to be eradicated to kind of complete the mission. I think there's certainly room to work on two diseases at once. So I don't think we should
Wait.
diminish the polio work, but at the same time, we can also begin working on malaria or other issues that are important.
Sounds reasonable.
It's
Okay.
also kind of
is it-
politically what Rotary wants to do.
Any questions, comments, concerns from folks here in attendance tonight? Yes?
Jeff, Susie Burke,
Yes, I see your hand, Susie.
did you know that we were the ones that brought Tableau to the table
Ah,
back in the PATH days?
I did not. In fact, I just was on a 6 a.m. webinar with them this morning. They spoke at Seattle Rotary about a year ago. They've spoken at our board meeting. Well, hats off to you guys. That is huge. That has really,
That's what happens, and that's what everybody has to understand. When there is a local business growing like a weed that decides to do something internationally, they'll look around for the folks that are around them that are already doing things. And in this case, it was PATH. And the first big donation that Tableau made outside of the Seattle area was to PATH for finding that the place in Zambia where it made the most sense to go in and really make an impact. And I'm quite sure that they're being able to show that the impact that was being made kind of helped get everything going.
so a couple things. One, PATH using the Tableau software is a partner on our Programs to Scale project in Zambia. But because of Tableau's graphics, in conjunction with work with PATH and the government in Zambia, that was instrumental in reducing the malaria burden in the southern provinces to down to around 1% from previously like 25 to 30%. So that was really transformational. I mean, if you guys were involved in that, that's huge, because that's not only for malaria, Susie, but that's being rolled out for other diseases and whatnot. That is an actually really huge advancement. So you guys are rock stars from that standpoint.
It was wonderful for us because we're such a small little place on the face of the earth, Fremont, but they were our new big growing software company. And I just have to say, we, especially around Seattle, I believe, have to be aware that it's our locals. It's the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and it's PATH that have helped launch many of these things internationally and with the rest of Rotary, simply because they were here. Mr. Gates Sr. was the one who identified to his son that they could be of help with polio because his club, Seattle 4, not his son's club, his club, was working on it, and it had a long way to go. That's when I joined Rotary. Women came into Rotary as, just a year or two into the push against polio. And the other thing that helped was the Gates Foundation.
Well, both Tableau getting into malaria and polio and women getting into Rotary were two great steps. So,
Real big help.
yeah.
All right.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Do you work with, or do you reach out to the African community here in Seattle in regards to these projects to their own countries, to their home country, in terms of, a lot of times there'll be members here that would be concerned about their families in Africa, in Ethiopia or Zambia or Eritrea, about polio and malaria. Is there a connection from here with that community, with our community, back to the country?
One of our board members, Marcia Mutisi, who lives in Tacoma, is from Zimbabwe. She's actually in Seattle 4. She's a member of a local organization for African residents living in the Pacific Northwest, and I don't recall the name of it. She's tried to get local folks involved. We haven't gotten as much traction as we could. Most of our work is directly with the Rotarians living in Africa. But it's a good question. It's something we should pursue a little more aggressively, because she's an example of that.
And Ezra Shome
Yes,
from Ethiopia has been active in Malaria Partners International as well.
yeah, he's been on our board. I think everybody knows Ezra for polio work in Ethiopia. But it's a good question. It's something we need to make a better effort on.
So while you're out in the field addressing this, the polio and malaria, do you take on other medical issues if there's something that comes up outside of this particular issue?
Well, actually, the community health workers are trained and equipped to deal with two other elements. One is diarrheal diseases, and the other is upper respiratory or pneumonia. And the reason being that those three are far and away the biggest killers of young children in Africa. So, so they're able to treat and test for those other ailments as well. Now, the challenges of those other ailments is where malaria medicines are provided through the Global Fund, non-malarial medicines for diarrheal diseases or pneumonia are not supplied that way. And so the supplies for those two elements can be a bit of a scramble at times. But they are trained for those other elements, those other.
And at least the diagnosis separates it out so people really know what's happening, because whenever somebody has a fever, they think they have malaria, no matter what. So that
it is to have other board members on this call.
I'm sorry.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
Lots of information. And speaking, so it sounds like that's helping with getting the appropriate data, right? So that you can, so yeah, and that's Tableau. That's the Tableau connection again. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yes, ma'am.
Jeff, you guys, just so you know, our priest in the parish here up in Greenwood, Father Crispin, is from Kenya. And so when we had our first little event where we all got together, he came and spoke eloquently about having malaria as a child. He survived it at 8. And of course, every time he goes home to Africa, he gets a relapse, but he still goes home to Africa. But he spoke eloquently, and I'm sure he would help anytime, especially if you were making a pitch to some of the local because he does the mass in Swahili down in Kent every Sunday afternoon. They have a huge population down there from several countries that all know Swahili, because, as he says, it's life-changing if you can keep a child from getting malaria in the first place. Because even if they survive, they carry it with them.
Comes back.
Susie, if you can send us his contact information or her contact information, we'd love to make a connection.
He's a Catholic priest. I'll guarantee you it's him.
Okay.
So far, it's changing.
No,
One topic at a time, Sala.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
It will change.
No, it won't.
50 years from now.
We'll see. We'll see about that.
You won't be around, so you won't.
It's not gonna change.
Well, thank you, Jeff. Again, thank you so much, Sala. Thank you, Larry, for being here tonight. Does anyone, Jeff or James, do you guys have any questions or comments for the group? Just while everyone gathers their thoughts there, I do want to say, I think the community health. Oh, go ahead.
Great presentation, very inspiring. You guys are doing some great work.
I would just like to add one thing before we leave, and that is that on June 30th, we're doing a webinar about the malaria vaccine, which is being tested right now. And Path is the one that's leading that conversation.
I think I heard that they're willing to take money to defeat malaria. So everyone out there in here, if we want to pitch in some money, I am sure I'm going to be sending this $250 check. Maybe we can get it up to a little more than that.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
No,
That would be very welcome, and you're right. We rarely refuse donations.
I think it does help to have multiple clubs pitching in on something.
Absolutely.
It gives it a certain status.
Yeah. And we seriously, if you choose to support us, that is fantastic. That is fantastic. Thank you.
Meanwhile, all of you need to show up in Fremont this weekend as we celebrate the solstice. And all of our businesses are open. All of our little restaurants are open. The distillery and the brew garden are open. But the biggest
Is this, Susie, is this one of these clothing optional Fremont events?
That's just what I was going to say. Not only no masks, but no clothes.
We don't have any control over clothing optional bicyclists that show up from time to time, but we're not planning on them for this weekend. What we are planning on is a lot of free, fun Fremont time, because we need to get our little community going again, and we're just all ready for it. There's a little circus performance. There's art cars and whatnot. Go online, fremocentrist.com, or the chamber, which is fremont.com, and it'll tell you all the stuff that's going on. The nice thing about it is it's going to be way more open and fun than most of what's happening around the community.
You'll probably get a big turnout because all this pent up interest and demand. So
I sure hope so, because the businesses are really looking forward to seeing folks.
When I was at Pets 2 years ago, I was talking up the Fremont community and our chapter, and I mentioned, the solstice parade, the art cars, the statue of Lenin, the naked bike riders, and my God, all anybody wanted to talk about and all anybody remembered about Fremont was the naked bike riders. I learned to pitch Fremont in a much different way after that.
Yeah. But
Not even a troll, huh?
We're having an art walk that you get by looking at your phone, one of these little squares things, because we have 70 pieces of art sitting around Fremont in general all the time. But this weekend, we're probably going to have 150 just for the fun of it.
Yeah, you're right, Stella. The safe space for discussing Fremont is the troll. Everybody knows about that. Everybody can relate to that.
You bet. And there's a live art. There's a wall being painted right now, right down by Theo Chocolate and our dinosaurs. So I mean, it's active art too.
Mm.
All right.
Which you can see up
I think we're winding down then. Is there anything else, last time, third time's a charm, that I'll ask everybody for participation? Anyone else want to mention anything? Yes, Beth?
The blood committee would like you to know there's a pop-up to donate blood at the Paramount Theater at the first week of July.
July 6th, 7.
I think so.
I think it starts on the 6th.
Yeah.
I sent the email to everybody.
Thank you. I saw that.
Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna, yes.
Why don't you have a pop-up this weekend here?
Oh.
That's really a nice idea. I'll run that by the
There's gonna
powers that be.
Dozens of people.
I mean, it would just be.
That would be so cool. Just out there.
And we keep hearing about the desperate situation.
I will ask the powers that be at What Works
That's so
Northwest.
smart. That's why I eat lunch with you.
We're degenerating into banter over here. Jeff, Larry, solid. Yes, Jeff.
For Fremonters for next week, do you think we will be back at Hales by then? Or is that TBD?
TBD, Susie's saying probably not.
Yeah, it's probably gonna take a little doing. We gotta
Okay,
find
got
out what they can do and what we can do and put it together. But we'll be
So-
looking for it.
Count on another meeting at LTD next weekend?
Yep.
All right.
LTD, and I believe Lukashin wants to do his last presentation. He had that series going on leadership. So
Okay.
another presentation next week. We'll try to do it again. If there's any feedback from anyone about the meeting tonight, especially logistically, it's definitely not ideal, obviously, with the setup. So any suggestions that you have, we'll try to make happen. Right now, I'm trying to figure out a way to get a monitor in here so we're not just on my laptop. And then also probably, I don't know if we need like some microphones or something around the room, but if any of you guys, especially on the Zoom meeting, have any comments about how it went for us here in person, please let us know. All right.
Thanks for having me, Kurt.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Sala. Everyone.
Thank you for your contribution as well. Thank you.
See you all.
Thank you. We'll put this online. Thanks for the presentation.
Great.
Good
Thanks.
night.